I'm big with teens, girls, lesbians, the mentally ill, the very sad, folk music enthusiasts.
Do you enjoy it? Do you enjoy being famous?
I love being famous. I love it. I go to gay bars, I get noticed, and I'm like, stop. But inside, I'm like, this is awesome.
It's so refreshing to hear you say that because, when you talk to a lot of successful people, they like to talk about, the way they got successful, but then also, how hard it is.
I'm obsessed with it. I love it. But you have to think, it wasn't that long ago. I was lip syncing for 15 people in a burger bar.
It took some time for Trixie to become Trixie. She was born and grew up as Brian Fergus.
I want to go back a little bit. You grew up in a place called Silver Cliff in Wisconsin.
Yep, Silver Cliff, Wisconsin.
I'm not going to lie, I've never heard of it before reading up on you. I think it has a population of around 500 people.
Yes, it does.
Can you tell us what it was like growing up there?
Well, I grew up on a dead-end dirt road in a trailer.
So far removed from everything.
100%.
How different did you feel back then?
I was such a gay kid. I loved pink and glitter and dolls, but I knew enough about the environment to not say anything about it, But I always wanted to be famous. I used to sit and practice drawing my name, like my autograph, all the time.
I did that too.
You did?
Yeah.
I would be in school and people would be like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm working on my autograph because I'm going to be a star. And people are like, okay, fag.
And what was your relationship like with your family back then?
Well, my mom and I have always been pretty close. She's like a super dry, sarcastic, Native American, single mom, hippie woman. We're here with my diabetic mother having a tequila shot. Cheers. Love you. Love you too. She's so funny. I just bought her a house in Wisconsin. That was cool. And
that must have felt so good.
It did. But then I told my realtor, now this could get really emotional. She's never owned a house like this. She rents a trailer in the woods. This could be a big day and we could see some waterworks. I took that whore into my house and Alyssa said, look, this is your house. I bought it for you, cash. And she goes, it looked bigger in pictures. And I was like, oh my God. Turns out you can be Wisconsin trash and have nothing and still be like bougie somehow.
That's hilarious.
Oh my goodness. My brother, he was always worried that if I was a performer, I wouldn't make any money. Turns out the cure to that is make more money than he does. That's a great way
What does he make of what you do now?
Well, my brother's so impressive. He's like a 3-time Iraq war vet.
I read that.
He's an attorney. He's amazing. He's like the perfect American man, like perfect. And
bastard.
I'm the perfect American woman.
In pursuit of that perfection, though, Brian struggled for acceptance. At a young age, his stepdad became physically and emotionally abusive, once pointing a loaded gun at him and saying he'd shoot.
My stepdad growing up, he used to call me a Trixie whenever I was acting too feminine or too emotional. And so that's kind of how I got the name.
You took it and ran with it?
Yeah, now I just go by Trixie. It's weird because to me that was like a slur. That was like faggot or something. And now Trixie in like American zeitgeist is like people think of me like the gayest person ever.
How do you see those times impacting your life later and kind of what you chose to do, the path you chose to take?
I can really laugh through anything. And honestly, like once I moved out, like every day of my life just felt great. I was the poorest kid in a small town with the worst family anyone's ever heard of. Whenever I get back on the Billboard charts, or when we had a best-selling book, or when I won Drag Race, there's always these freeze frames of like, how did this happen?